Great, thank you. No questions for me.
I said, I knew you called me. Michelle called me absolutely in a panic from the public market. She was like, he's 45 minutes. I said, I know it's bad. I know it's bad. And all of a sudden, I told her to do
This is probably a stupid job.
Jeez, it's always a nightmare. But tell us that. I think to it. You gotta have something.
Oh. You've also got it in the house. Talking into Pamela's mic in the house. Last poor Yorick, I knew him, Mauricio, a fellow of infinite jest, of most excellent fancy. He hath borne me on his back 1,000 times now. Okay.
And I didn't think about snacks. It's the last thing on my mind. So
How are you doing? It's good to see you. Pretty good. Busy? Yeah. How are you?
The latest.
Bookstore's opening.
Yeah.
Saturday.
Where's it?
It's in the Just Bookish.
Can't wait.
Yeah.
Check it out.
I mean, if you have time, whenever you do have time. And then how are you?
Because my daughter.
Oh, nice. How do you get?
Oh, for sure. No problem.
I would say I'll absolutely.
John, good to see you.
Yes. And then the library.
What's your bookstore gonna be? Thematic theme?
It's small, intimate, highly curated, and social justice themed, you know.
How are you?
Yeah. Well, we've been opening.
Nice to see you.
Yeah.
Deep, great to see you.
Yeah, whatever.
And make it. No, I'm excited.
I'm sure you're so busy.
No. Thanks for making it. It's great that
I know. We got a couple of us just left.
I heard. Yeah.
Surprised that we made it.
Nice to see you. What's going on?
Everything.
Everything in numbers, right?
Small world. Were you all also in Dunster? Or no, was he Dunster? Leverett. No, Leverett. That's right. Oh, you. Do you know any of his? I think his blockmates. Paul Nguyen, by chance. Got it. So your husband was part of Leverett also. Too. Got it. Such a small world. Christian was a few years.
New Leverett or old Leverett?
I broke. What did you do? Did you Uber?
I always Uber is my car.
What's new? New
But I
Leverett.
told him
Oh yeah.
That's pretty beautiful.
the son just took over.
I tried to take.
But it's huge.
I tried to.
So
take
Paul lived there
whenever
as
I
a student advisor. So Paul's, his wife is
part of the
problems
problem.
with my
And especially with
super small
the
world.
shuttle.
Mutual friend. So
Yeah.
her college, Sarah's college friend is headmaster at my kid's school.
What'd you think of that?
Boston University.
Oh, it's beautiful.
It is. We love it. It's very small. It's nerdy.
I don't
It's
know
got
what
50 people.
It's a great one.
But it was, I'd imagine it would be more productive and less than
Oh yeah.
But that's, I don't know, I don't mean to be a negative.
No, I know exactly.
Yeah.
So, but yeah,
He was at law school, and then he went to teaching, which is terrific.
you know, I love the little
He went to us like 6 years, like 5 years.
But hopefully,
So I just mentioned, hey,
especially right
one of
now,
our, they went through a pretty big process too.
Hello.
One of the things was program connectivity, which was just some random emails. I was on the advisory board. I was just saying, hey, how are you? To connect the BPO, and then it's impossible. He said, then he mentioned this. I was like, oh, you're already connected. Like, whatever he wants from the Boston Public Library. I'm surprised he hasn't reached out already to
I know.
So I have a follow-up meeting with him very soon. Maybe the three of us can get an email chain. Think about, is there a connection? You know, how can we get through this? And just spending some time here. I had Tiffany speak at my daughter's graduation. She loved it.
Hey, great to see you.
So we have a
Almost there, yeah.
I caught it. No, that's kind of
Where were you before?
It does feel like quite a journey. Do you have other, maybe it's not public knowledge, but are you working with other libraries? What other libraries? Oh, that's exciting.
Yeah. Funny.
Yeah.
Why don't we show just calling?
He succeeded.
He succeeded.
Let me check text messages. Pick one. And then who else is there?
You really had to drive. You have to go to
Jonathan won't.
Yeah, politics are very
No, Jonathan can't. Oh no.
for
No. He can't come to these acquisitions. Yeah, Jeff can't.
Got very good.
He has an annual meeting. That's why
Library person. I was asking a question.
That's Brooklyn. They were in the thing. They were at
Oh my God, right.
Was Los Angeles like us that they had that a long time? When did they last do?
yeah.
I don't know.
So I was concerned that it's time to.
I'll text you later.
That's exciting. Yeah. How much time?
this one,
Evelyn's here, so we have 8. So now.
It's exciting. Congratulations.
I think we should sit down and wait for.
Sure.
No, you
More than five? More than five? I think more than five.
Definitely more than
Definitely.
that.
It's a nice place. David? Oh, this is Grant?
Yeah, but it was like one of those things.
I bet it would come back, so I bet if he went back.
Maybe. Who knows? It's probably somewhere in my recess in my brain.
Fix all the technology after it.
Are we anywhere near quorum at this point?
We have quorum, exactly.
Never
Gonna
really all we're on.
get folks sit down. No, we'll sit down, we'll get things started.
And then when the invited guests come,
Anybody gets to
We're also
this
spread
is
out.
Lynn sitting here.
My fault, sorry.
So let Lynn sit
I would
here.
welcome you to sit there, but I don't want
Let's have Lynn right there.
to presumptuous.
Jose, did I hear Chief Masso can stay for a little bit of time on the engagement stuff?
He may. He and I spoke yesterday, and I understood he was coming.
Yeah.
So I think he.
Something I wanted to ask you about, and I don't know what it was. I'll remember it
Yeah,
some.
that's what I heard from him as well.
Oh God, I hope so.
Me too.
Excuse me.
Alimentando el vecindario.
Say it again?
Un señor que había allí le repartía comida. Yo le compré la comida.
Gary.
If anyone would like to grab a snack, please feel free to do so.
Home baked.
Compliments of the president's office.
Well, I didn't get President's office.
There's a sign, there's a big sign on the door that says no food or drinks
Is that
allowed.
what it says?
Branch librarian took down the sign in here.
I don't know.
All right. People set with this.
If anyone wants to sign up for public comment, there is a sign-in sheet in the back of the room. You'll see it at the entrance where the meeting materials are. And if you're on Zoom, you can sign up via the chat, and we will take you in the order that you received. There's 2 minutes, and we'll open your mics for you.
Great, thank you very much. I guess I bring this meeting to order. I'm Dr. Raymond Liu, Chair of the Board of Trustees, and this is really a special meeting, so thank you all for having us here and the warm welcome, the honor of visiting the Mattapan branch of the Boston Public Library. We have a great agenda here, and we'll be going through it. But one of the special pieces, not least of which is that we have a special guest today, and Mayor Michelle Wu should be coming shortly. I heard she's fairly on time in terms of her own schedule today, and perhaps Chief Masso as well too. So really an exciting day today as we welcome our guests, our invited guests, and review some key agenda items today. So with that in order, calling this meeting to order, I want to acknowledge our BPL opening statement. The trustees of the Boston Public Library reaffirm our commitment to racial equity and to the principles of diversity, equity, and inclusion more broadly. The library is formally committed to becoming an anti-racist organization in response to systemic racism, inequity, and injustice prevalent in our society. We acknowledge also that the Boston Public Library Central Library stands on the land that was once a water-based ecosystem providing sustenance for the indigenous Massachusetts people, and is a place which has long served as a site of meeting and exchange amongst nations. We are committed to land acknowledgements for all locations at which we operate. We reaffirm this commitment to set the context for our planning, deliberations, and public engagement so that they take place from the spirit of welcome and respect found in our motto, free to all. So I trust that all of us believe both in the sentiments, the content, and the spirit of this, and I thank you very much for acknowledging that piece. Again, welcome to everybody. We have a wonderful agenda. As mentioned, a number of different announcements. We have discussions, and we'll hear from Maurice as the chair of the Mattapan branch librarian. But of course, one of the most special and rich conversations that we'll have is reviewing our strategic plan. And this is something that we've been talking about for a while, and very, very pleased to get us into what we call a final draft. With that, we'll move forward to the next bit of agenda and have a roll call of the board.
Just a reminder, this meeting is being recorded. Arano Ortiz? Here. Najib Bal? There is traffic. I do want to note that for the record, so I will acknowledge trustees for the record as they enter, so everyone is aware. Joe Berman? Here. Jim Canales?
Here.
Cheryl Cronin is joining us via audio until she gets home to a Zoom. She's stuck in traffic as well. John Heiler.
Here.
Jeff Hawkins is not able to make it today. Julie Kim also called to tell us that she was running late. And Jonathan Levine perhaps might be running in traffic as well. Bill's certainly acknowledge him if he arrives. Ray Liu.
Here.
Jose Masso.
Here.
Portia Olewala.
Here.
Mike Rush. Christian Westra.
Here.
And Lynn Perry-Wooten. We have a quorum.
Excellent, great. Moving on to the minutes of September 24th, 2024. I'll be looking for a motion to approve these minutes. I trust all folks saw this in their board packets. We had a number of different votes, but also talked about the strategic plan unfolding with some updates. Do I hear for a motion to approve the minutes?
So moved. Second.
All in favor, aye.
Aye.
Any nays? So passes. Thank you very much. Great. With that in mind, we were going to go to the president's report, if that's right.
Yes.
Great.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good afternoon, trustees, and it's great to be back in Mattapan for a trustees meeting. It has been a little bit of time since we have been here as a full body, and I would now like to simply turn the floor and the microphone to the branch librarian, long-serving branch librarian here at the Mattapan branch of the Boston Public Library, Maurice Gordon.
And the mayor will arrive within 5 minutes.
Okay. Do I have a mic? Oh, okay. Okay. Welcome to everyone to the Mattapan Branch Library. First and foremost, I would like to thank the Board of Trustees on behalf of the staff for choosing the Mattapan branch to have today's board meeting. The Mattapan branch has developed into a vibrant center for the Mattapan community, and it has been my pleasure to be a part of its growth. Our patrons are not only residents of Mattapan, but also those of the surrounding communities. A typical day at the branch is filled with innumerable opportunities for staff to exercise and hone in on their customer service skills. As the branch librarian, it is very fulfilling to watch the younger generation grow into the men and women of tomorrow. Even more satisfying are the encounters with patrons that remember when they were helped by staff, sometimes in a brief interaction, a kind word, or a memorable moment that shows how much, unbeknownst to us, we are directly and indirectly touching lives and even in some cases making a big difference. Our computers are heavily used by our patrons. The children use the computers regularly for gaming, and the adults use the computers to do job searching, filling out online forms, listening and watching videos, creating flyers, and creating and updating resumes. In addition to the daily duties of the staff, we have quite a bit of community organizations that book our community meeting room. They use our space as part of their outreach to the community. From various medical groups to listening sessions, and from various info sessions to workshops. This chart shows 1 week of data per month from the beginning of the calendar year through September. As you can see, most of what we do on a regular basis is provide information for our patrons, the bulk of which the library assistants get at the circulation desk. Reference transactions are at a minimum, with technology assistance somewhere in between. Our monthly statistics shows that program participation in general is good. General programming participation accounts for roughly 35% of the statistics since January of the calendar year 2024. Outreach to classes is second highest, followed by school visits that visit the library. This shows that programming and outreach are healthy and strong. And these are some of the programs. It's just a snapshot of what's been happening here at the library. We do have 2 ESL classes, one that the library itself runs, and another ESL class from the Immigrant Family Services Institute. And here we have a photo of them using the courtyard. Also IFSI, Immigrant Family Services Institute, they use our space. And in this particular picture, they're having a nursing graduation ceremony. And then Music Connects is a very vibrant community of musicians that teach the younger ones and learn so that they can learn music and become professional musicians. So we're always good and happy to welcome Music Connects. And this also is our programs for the young one, making murals, and we do have a weekly Lego club so that children can come and play with the Legos. We had a program which was in conjunction with the library Friends on African American genealogy, which was really a very good program. At this point, I would like to publicly thank the Mattapan staff for all they do to keep the branch running and making it possible to have programming and maintaining our service to the community. We have Kathleen Keller, who is our generalist, Jonathan Cook, our library assistant, and Amy Lustow. She is our children's librarian, but she's on leave of absence, and we're hoping to see her as soon as possible next year. We also have Savon Myers, who is our custodian, and Marianne Ville, who is our circulation supervisor. We also have Laurel Cannon, who is a part of community learning, but she's based here at the branch. And I just want to say thank you to the staff. They've been a real support to the branch. Earlier this year, the Mattapan Branch Friends Group had their first program after a long break. It was a success and very encouraging to see the Friends Group start back in action again. Many thanks to Glenola Mitchell and Barbara Prishlow for keeping the group going. We are always looking for members to join our Friends Group. In closing, I would like to take the opportunity also to thank and to show my appreciation to the Board of Trustees, management, and all who make the operation of the branch possible by their support, dedication, and direction. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Maurice. And I would echo our thanks to you and the staff for making this a vibrant community, as it has been in this new location since, I think, 2008?
2009.
2009.
Yeah.
And this is, I believe, the second time that the trustees as a body have met at this location, but not in a while.
Yeah.
One of my personal favorite memories was when you hosted an immigration ceremony here in this particular room, where we had people obtaining their citizenship in that ceremony. So thank you and the staff.
You're welcome. My pleasure.
Thank you. Our guest has arrived, but I'm going to conduct one small moment of business before I do that. We have a tradition of welcoming our newest members of either management or key staff members. And so I'm pleased to invite Jonathan Eschel and Jake Jasevicius, our Chief of Operations and Facilities Manager, to just say hello and welcome to the team. And as we've now joked that we only hire managers in facilities going forward whose initials start with a J. So, see that. Jonathan, welcome.
Good afternoon. It's a pleasure to meet all of you today. My name is Jonathan Eschel. I am the Chief of Operations at the BPL as of the beginning of October. So on the 6-week mark, it has been a thrilling privilege to be able to work for this absolutely vital institution and to serve the community and citizens of Boston and the Commonwealth. A little bit about myself. I grew up overseas. After serving the Marines, I got my MBA and have been working and living in Europe for the past decade, where I was working in operations management, and moved to Boston for this once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. So thrilled to be here and thrilled to be of service.
I'd like to echo everything John just said. Similarly, what a privilege to work for the community. It's a fantastic opportunity. I'm Jake Jasevicius. I come from a background in sports, turf, and facilities management, and I am the facilities manager at Central for trades and custodial. So thanks so much for having me, and yeah.
It's great to have you both here. Our facilities management team is now fully staffed for the first time in a long, long time. So great additions to the team. And we won't tell Chief Jose Massa about your sports facilities management expertise. So thank you both. I also want to just acknowledge that for those of you who saw an earlier version of the agenda, our friends at the Boston Public Library Fund were to present, but given the fullness of this agenda, I graciously agreed to defer their presentation until the next meeting, which clearly will follow the strategic plan of this meeting. And so Hannah Grove and Paula Saki are both here regardless, and we look forward to having you back at a future meeting for the more formal presentation. And now, without further ado, as our lead-in to the presentation of strategic planning, the chair and I would like to invite the mayor, who has now joined us, to offer greetings and perhaps feedback on the plan. I'm not sure. We haven't talked about that. And she is, of course, joined by the Chief of Human Services, Jose Masso, the library being a member of the Human Services Cabinet. Welcome, Mayor. Welcome, Chief.
Thank you. Should I talk in person? Okay. Well, thank you. Good afternoon to all our trustees and community members and partners and all of our team members. Thank you so much to Maurice and Jake and John and everyone whose name starts with the J. Jose also. We are so grateful for your service. I have had the chance to go through the strategic plan. I saw maybe this was more of a reminder to me when David sent it over, and there's a big blank space for my letter in the front. So I need to finish some part of that as well. But the focus on the 4 core roles of the library system, I think, is very powerful in this moment. It's, you all have been part of the transition as the city had thought about libraries being nestled under arts and culture, libraries being nestled under human services. I mean, the truth is that you all are kind of the foundational infrastructure across so much of what we do, and there's no pigeonholing the types of services that are needed from our libraries, branch libraries, and also the types of spaces that end up being created for people to feel at home, to have that trusted partner, to have that sense of community. And every conversation I've had, it just was with, we were both with a group of several dozen seniors in Mattapan, and people are feeling very anxious about what's ahead, the struggles and pressures that are on their families now, and also how the world might change as we navigate choppy waters with everything happening in the next few years. And so having that trusted relationship directly to our residents, preserving our sense of history and community, creating new ways to engage, putting supports around lifelong learning to continue bringing people together, I think that will be more important than ever before. We, I think, have to understand the library system in Boston as a sort of constellation of how people are accessing everything else that the city does and everything else that even state or federal government does. And our library staff, therefore, they're sort of the mavericks of knowing what's available and being able to connect people to anything that is needed, and being that, I think that quote stuck out to me in the report about how, I forget what topic it was, that the librarian was saying that someone was asking for their help with taxes or something, because this is where they get their, they have the greatest confidence and faith that they're going to get the truth. So I appreciated that part of the plan. I also felt that the appendix, which actually goes through the nationwide comparison among peer cities in terms of staffing and size and all that, was very, very helpful for me to be able to understand and review as we're stacking up against some of our peer cities as well. So thank you. I had nothing but a sense of learning new things and affirmation from reading that report, and I'm here to mostly say we're incredibly grateful for all of your service and all your work. We know we have much more to do.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mayor, and thank you all, the Board of Trustees, for the time and opportunity. It's so great to see you all, as always. I had a selfish view in reviewing it. Honestly, I think, I had the opportunity to sit with David and his leadership team, to see the work that went into it behind the scenes. And so leading up to what it is that we are presenting today was just a magnificent just process that went behind it, and the work that you all contributed to it as well was really meaningful. And for me, of course, the selfish aspect came from the view of human services, right? And I know what I often, say from time to time again is that a building with books does not make it a library. It is the people, right? It is the librarians, it is the services that we're able to provide. I just shared from the event that we just came to that last week, Thursday, in this very same space, we held a career fair, but it was not your typical career fair. What made it very unique was that we had 13 employers who were supportive of supporting our returning citizens. So our formerly incarcerated individuals, we had 109 people walk through the space who were lined up out the door. And that's just telling of the spaces that we have here. These are very important times where we're focusing on spaces and places. And these are the palaces for the people, right? And so as we know what is that we need in our day and time, the libraries are able to provide them, and especially here in our city of Boston. And it's the human connection, it's the human aspect that for me embodies the reasons why I so enjoy having BPL as part of our cabinet. Now, the strategic plan does align strictly with that and does have key components that lead up to that as well. And as the mayor shared, the other information in comparison to the other cities was very extremely helpful. It was just being able to take a look at it and say, okay, this is where we stand as a really just large city and large system in comparison to many others as well. So for me, I'm excited by it. I'm definitely looking forward to what does this mean in action and how does we, are able to get things started. So again, thank you to the contributions and all the work that you all contributed to it.
Thank you both so much. I will pass it back to our chair, Dr. Ray Liu, to tee up the formal presentation of the plan for review by the trustees.
Thank you very much, David, and thank you, Mayor Wu, and thank you, Chief Masso. Feel free, I know, Mayor Wu, that your schedule is busy to make your way. But in terms of teeing this up, I just want to say a huge thank you to the Boston Public Library staff, community members, City Hall, many, many other stakeholders. Special thanks to Christian Westra and Jose Masso, who are the co-chairs of the Strategic Planning Committee from the Board of Trustees. We all know that this was a labor of love over many, many moons, I guess I would say. Dozens and dozens of meetings from Gensler and Margaret Sullivan here, and you only know how much went into this, and many, many, many thanks to you all and your whole team. Would say that we're here to hear about the strategic plan. We're here to walk through it. This was endorsed by the Executive Committee of the Board of Trustees and endorsed with incredibly high recommendation and without any reserve. Bold, ambitious, inspiring, and as Mayor Wu said, exciting, as Chief Masso also said, exciting. And great to hear that this resonates with both Mayor Wu and Chief Masso on so many different levels. It's about making choices, though, right? It's not about necessarily doing everything and being everything to everyone, and that's on purpose, right? We need to prioritize. I think today's goal is really to listen, to engage in rich discussion, and primarily hear areas of resonance and prioritization from our trustees. Our next steps are not for any formal vote to happen today. This is really about a rich conversation, and what we'll do is hear from the trustees, encourage feedback to be given, take that feedback in stride, make any necessary changes, but also have a special vote for final approval in December. And that will lead us into a beautiful next year for 2025. With that, I would like to pass things over to Christian, perhaps, and maybe Jose for just a few words.
Thank you very much, Ray, and thank you everyone who's involved in this process. It truly was a collaborative process, and I'm so grateful to David and his team and Gensler, Margaret Sullivan, and all the very many stakeholders who are part of this. And thank you very much, Mayor Wu and Chief Masso, for being here. This truly has been one of my greatest honors and privileges as a citizen of Boston. I can say that what Mayor Wu, you were saying in terms of the libraries being a critical way of knitting communities together is something that resonates deeply with me, and I'm glad that that came through in the plan. And so we're just incredibly excited about the plan and where it will take us. And I personally am very grateful for the opportunity. I'm not sure, Jose, if you wanted to add anything.
I would just say, and thank you both Mayor Wu and Chief Masso for your insight as to what we have presented as far as this work is concerned. I want to thank first Christian for his leadership and also, of course, everybody else here on the board. But in particular, I want to thank David for having the insight of making sure that all the stakeholders were part of this conversation. That it wasn't top down, but that was very broad in the sense of who came to the table to have their thoughts and their views articulated in a way that we can embed them into what the strategy would be, which included your staff. And it wasn't just the top staff, it was everybody from top to bottom, which for me is very important because as Chief Basso says to me offline, unless there's buy-in on the part of everyone that is a stakeholder within the BPL, it's not going to work. So I think for me, my takeaway is that, at least from my perspective, there has been buy-in because they've had a voice, they've been at the table, we've heard them, and I think it's been embedded in what we're presenting today as part of the strategic plan. So I want to thank you, David, for your leadership in making that happen, and also Christian, of course, in making sure that we kept our eye on the prize as far as what we wanted to present to the board. I'm very proud of the work that's being presented. I'm excited as well. I'll close by saying, you know, when I take my 5-year-old grandson to the Hyde Park Library, he always says, "Are you taking me to the school library or the library school?" That's the way he sees the library, the library school. And so I want him to see this, what we see as the vision for the future, as being very much a place where he will see it as a space and a place for him to be part of, and to learn, and to engage, and to socialize, and to grow into the best thing he could be as far as a human being. So I'm excited about the potential for this. So I'm very grateful, and thank you.
I think with that, we'll hand things over to our wonderful, wonderful partners in crime, Aaron and Margaret, to walk through the strategic plan. I think you'll wayfind us, but my understanding is we'll do a high-level walkthrough and then circle back and start the discussion after once through.
Yep, thank you. And I'm going to do a little introduction. Thank you, Trustee Masso. You took the words out of my mouth. I'm excited for you all. I'm proud for you all. Trustee Westra, when I walked in, he said, you know, "What else are you working on? Can you even disclose?" I was like, it's all public. And we are starting our work. Y'all are passing the baton off to us to start our work in LA Public Library, which is very exciting that we're able to build on y'all's great work. But in opening their work this week, we got to present to the managers and ask the question, how many of you all have ever done strategy before? Some raised their hands. I said, what words would you describe it? And they all kind of, I said, no one has ever said fun, but I hope that with you all, we brought the fun, and you certainly brought your best selves to this work. I recently met with a professor of the history of strategic planning who works at the Kellogg School of Business, and he imparted 3 words of wisdom that I think also affirm your work. The first thing he said to me is that in this work of strategy, the one and only question that this work needs to answer is, who are we? Without a single doubt, this work affirms that the BPL is free to all. That commitment will reinvigorate the library around shared values and shared purpose. The second thing he said to me was, good strategy will always come from our strengths. This strategy was born out of the great work, Maurice, you set us up, that the BPL does for and in community each and every day. What you all have produced is a galvanization that will enable the talented BPL team to operate with greater intentionality for stronger and more impactful transformations. And the third thing he said to me was affirming some of the things that we also experience, that strategy for social impact is a relatively new industry, and we are all building the best practices for this work together. So by embracing this process as a process, by embracing this process with a commitment to doing your best work in service to community, you are advancing and leading the industry while also advancing and leading the BPL with an aspirational vision. So thank you all for enabling us to help you in your leadership. Kudos to David. I can't say enough, like you, Trustee Masso, for that leadership. There you go, Erin. Setting you up for the page turn.
A hard act to follow. So ending on process, thanking all for the process, and then we will be walking through
We're going to do a page turn, so I'll sort of walk through the document as we go, not necessarily diving into every piece, and then we'll pause for discussion once we've sort of been through the bulk of it. But also echoing everything around the thank you to everyone that was involved. It's wonderful also to see so many people were able to make it out tonight to see the quote-unquote final draft. And we are excited as partners and personally as a patron to see us sort of moving forward into the future. So hopefully.
And while you're turning that, I just want to acknowledge that we had Julie Kim and Navjeet Bahl join. Navjeet joined a while back. I'm sorry, I didn't interrupt the conversation.
Oh, good. The quorum expands. All right, so taking a look at the plan, it should be available on your screens and for those in the audience on the wall. Overall wayfinding, we start with sort of setting the stage and introductions, then we get into values, vision, and mission, talking about the roles we will serve in the future alongside the goals and initiatives that are alongside those roles, then talking about enablement and organizational readiness, and finally activating and what's next for the strategic plan, as well as an appendix, as mentioned, that includes sort of peer library benchmarking, communications findings, as well as some of the frameworks we used along the way, looking at Boston's community needs and some of the demographics analysis that was done earlier on, as well as a wonderful chapter at the end around food for thought. What are other libraries doing for inspiration as we move forward? I'll skip past the blank letters. As mentioned, we will have some letters from those in the audience today. No pressure. We will follow those up for the final draft. So setting the context, really framing that this is a library with a long history, looking far back and the firsts of when it was founded, the first free lending library, the first children's room, all of these institutional firsts, and continuing to set the stage for libraries well into the future. And as well as why are we updating the plan now? As mentioned by a few in the intros today, the role of the library has changed. It has always changed, but what we are being called to live in the future is different than what we were called to live in the past. And many of the roles that we will get into today are really reflective of what role we will play in the future to embody and address these emerging needs. I won't get into the stats, but there are some pretty impressive cardholder stats. Items viewed online in the past year, items overall, and as well, personal favorite, 26 million in-person visits in the past decade, well beyond the size of our Commonwealth.
They're not necessarily unique.
No, I've been a few times. I'm like, and definitely when I renewed my card, there were a lot of Aaron Corcorans in the system. So again, looking to the past, looking to the future, but also where is this plan living in context? As Margaret mentioned, what are our strengths? How is this building upon our work to date? The library continues to have an extremely strong footprint within the city of Boston. One of the notable stats is 73% of Boston residents live within a 15-minute walk. These are community anchors. These are spread throughout the city, and that footprint, as shown, the blue is amount of population. The outlines are that 15-minute walk radius. The Boston Public Library is a critical part of this city and will continue to be in the future, and sort of viewing that as our primary strength. It is, as mentioned, recognized as a trusted resource and a critical piece of our community's infrastructure, but facing some challenging and headwinds in our current context today, punching well above its weight as far as services and impact within the city, the Commonwealth, and the world, but also experiencing some staffing and funding difficulties in relation to peer libraries, as well as really evolving and growing community aspirations, needs, and what role it will be called to serve in the future, alongside that complexity of the footprint. It is both a major strength, but also a huge radius, a variety of library branches in various conditions, and will play within our welcoming destination and some of the initiatives within there. And then bringing that call to action to where we will head in the future, this new position with the Human Services Cabinet, and really having this timely, unique opportunity today to refine what our role will focus on in the future, to bring that focus on equity and serving the unique needs of our wide community breadth as we move forward. Looking for that sensor. Oh, okay, it's just delayed. Got it. So jumping into how will we define our future from the top at our values, vision, and mission, and then rolling down into the roles we will serve. So free to all, as mentioned, free to all will be the core of everything that we do. It has been the core since the beginning. It will continue to be the core. And what we love about this is it's the conjugations around this and how we can frame this, not just from a we have free books, but to a we welcome everyone equally, regardless. You are free to come here. You are free to be. You are free to grow, free to read, and evolving what free to all will both mean today and into the future. So viewing it both from that equity lens as well as a place where people can access free information, free services, and connect within the city. It will be, free to all will be the heart of everything we do, tied to our updated vision and mission. Oh. Yep, oh good.
The camera. Can we pull the camera in front of they can't see? Is there any way
Not a big deal.
The first one and not they both go second. Sorry, Greg. Back up. Sorry.
It's all good.
Sorry, everyone. I tried to do it discreetly.
We'll recognize the effort. So vision and mission, what will our refined vision and mission, and again, this a lot of co-creation and stakeholder engagement around these, but really this pairing of believing in an inclusive community propelled by curiosity, connection, and the pursuit of knowledge. Opening a world of discovery and learning to enrich lives and elevate every community. A lot of the discussion around access, being inclusive, having that discovery mindset, and also leaning into learning and some of our strengths related to that, but tying it to the community and both individual and collective pursuits. Okay, so then we, what's that? What did,
He's in the, he's a,
oh. It's gonna happen a couple times. But yes, welcome. So teeing up the roles we will play in our libraries, welcome. Speaking to mission vision, these are our beacon on the hill. This is where we want to head in the future. Our strategic roles, these are the roles we want to play. I think we talked in the creation of the strategic plan, the idea of a role that we lead and a multifaceted role in the future is something that was embraced through the process. So these are the roles we play in our communities. Associated with these roles, we have goals. So what are we aiming at to live these roles? And then within the goals, we have initiatives. What are the things that we will do in the future? This one, we've adjusted the graphics for the final draft, but in general, the 4 roles, one related to learning, lifelong learning and research partner, empowering curiosity and a love of reading, discovery, and scholarly exploration for all. The idea of being a place, spaces and places, a welcoming destination, where we will be creating active, inclusive third spaces where every person can chart their own path. That role of being a source of trust and truth and connection to trusted resources, connecting all people to reliable information and services that meet their needs and enrich their lives. And lastly, that reaching out towards our communities and reflecting our communities, being that community engager, expanding the reach of the library beyond the physical walls, meeting and engaging the communities where they are. I'll dive a bit more into these, but at the high level, it's that learning and research, that places and spaces, being that source of trust and truth, and reaching and connecting with communities. So again, I'll do these at a high level. It is a bit of page turn, but happy to come back to any of these. The ideas around lifelong learning and research partner, this is one of our primary strengths. This is what we would consider what our role would have been in the past and how we're evolving it towards the future. Continuing to play our vital role as a premier research institution open to everyone, celebrating, collecting, and preserving histories for the future, and the aspects around that dedicated function of lifelong learning and research. For each of the roles within the document, we talk about where are our strengths today associated with this role, what are the needs that this role will serve in the future. Again, I won't go through all of these, and the goals we'll review on the following pages. So for the goals for Lifelong Learning and Research Partner, we have 4 of them, primarily focused around youth, igniting young minds, elevating our role as an extraordinary hub of discovery, igniting the curiosity of young children and their families as they learn and grow together. Again, this idea of lifelong that we're starting at the beginning. Growing through youth opportunities, launching the next generation towards excellence, empowering teens and young adults with innovative tools and opportunities to shape their own futures and thrive during their transition to adulthood. There's many aspects of this, but again, leaning into the lifelong connections to research and learning. Supporting lifelong growth, so aiming a little bit more at championing adults' aspirations for personal success, becoming their true lifelong learning partner, fostering meaningful connections to their passions, but also to their communities. As communities become more isolated, that learning is also a way that we can connect and bring people together. And then lastly, the goal to preserve and share our heritage and history, pioneering innovative approaches to serve patrons from Boston, the Commonwealth, and beyond, leveraging our vast collections, services, and programs to connect communities to their past, document the present, and preserve these stories for the future. So both continuing the history and collections that we've had in the past, but leaning into bringing new stories, preserving today's stories, and continuing that role into the future. Okay. Next one, welcoming destinations, speaking more to the places where this happens. Leaning more into inclusive spaces across Boston that are uplifting, safe, and thoughtfully designed, fostering an environment where curiosity naturally flourishes. I'll get into the goals for these. Again, a lot of strengths around these today, but also recognizing those community needs for reducing social isolation, accessing well-being, responding to our communities through programming, and also really leaning into universal design and access for all of our spaces and branches. The goals within this role include that idea around inclusive spaces, that the location is really a place, every library location would be a place of belonging, a third space within their community, where all community members feel welcome, safe, included, inspired. They're able to create, connect, and celebrate their unique identities. Embracing diversity, that's offering things in multiple languages, accessibility, support for all, whether that's neurodiverse, different speakers, other cultures, and creating a vibrant crossroads where diverse communities find their voices amplified and celebrated. One in particular related to reimagining the McKim building, where our story starts, but also how this will evolve in the future, renovating and transforming that historical building into a vibrant, exciting library space that preserves and builds on its unique history, honoring the past, meeting the present, and celebrating the future, and viewing that opportunity as a way that we can really lean into this welcoming destination role. And then lastly, speaking to the future of our spaces, building sustainable communities, creating future-ready spaces that adapt with and support our evolving communities by continuing our visionary transformation of BPL's physical locations through thoughtful investment and innovative design. So this is both sustainable design, resilient design, but also including communities in these design processes, leaning into universal design inside, and bringing programming to celebrate these buildings. Trusted resource. I'm just going to go straight to the goals. How are we going to live the trusted resource role, that source of truth and also a connection to services? Leaning with continuing to deliver reliable information, championing the pursuit of truth and knowledge, setting the standard for information access, and positioning the BPL as a beacon of accuracy and intellectual freedom in the digital age. Also connecting people to trusted services and resources through the human services role, pioneering an effective partnership model of integrated community support, connecting social and human services in the city of Boston with those who need them most. There were a lot of conversation in the process around this role as far as people trust the library as a place they can connect to a range of services. It's a place they feel comfortable within to connect to, and how do we link to our partners and other services within the city. And then empowering digital access, understanding that digital literacy is a critical role for the future, advancing creative initiatives to shrink the digital divide, ensuring our patrons have the digital literacy skills, connectivity, and tools they need to embrace new technologies and thrive in an increasingly connected world. There's some additional language in the community engager about how we're going to reach out digitally, and this one speaks more to how do we enable people to connect to those digital aspects of the library. And then lastly, community engager. This is how we go beyond the library's walls into the community, reflecting the community. So really centering what we're doing in this role around community needs and input. So revolutionize how we serve, engage, connect to our neighborhoods through community-centered, data-informed outreach programs and services at our branches, enabling us to be in the community, working for the community, and informed by the community. There's a number of interesting initiatives that came up through a lot of co-discussions with the stakeholders as far as really to serve our communities, we need to better understand their needs, how they communicate, what they're coming to us for. So there's a number of initiatives related to understanding, but also tailoring how we communicate and connect beyond. So both studying, but also reaching out to. Amplifying community voices is more about how do we celebrate and empower our communities, investigating, uncovering, and amplifying the untold stories and history of Boston and the Commonwealth through our collections, programs, and services, ensuring every community's narrative becomes an integral part of Boston's collective identity. This is community-based history offerings, highlighting underrepresented communities, and using digital to help expand those out beyond the branches. And then the last two goals within this one, fostering civic participation, again, a very timely topic, but really looking at launching an innovative civic engagement program to bring people together and transform community members into active architects of and participants in Boston's civic life and future. So better understanding what other libraries are doing in this space, but also using our footprint and our reach within the city of Boston to be those centers of civic education and literacy. And then lastly, expanding that digital reach. So pioneering a true library without walls, enhancing the digital experience, and expanding awareness of Boston's online collections, setting new standards for accessibility, engagement, and use. So this is both how people find out what we do, how we get our information out into the world, and really getting people connected with that well beyond Boston, the Commonwealth, etc. So the roles for the future are ambitious and multifaceted and sort of leaning how we get there when we look at what are also the supports that we need to enable that growth and speak towards those roles in the future. So the section here is more around what is the work that we need to do as an organization to ready us to live these futures. Within these, we really focused on these 5 areas, both the culture of the workplace, creating that supportive and welcoming culture built upon trust, well-being, and belonging for staff and sort of how we connect together. But also looking at, for these roles and evolving roles in the future, ensuring that our staff is supported in growing to meet those needs. So whether that's workforce development, activating staff's existing expertise, sharing skills and passions to enable those roles in the future. Centered around EDI, so centering equity, diversity, and inclusion as a core value to both our staff and our services, which helps us enable those roles. Taking a look at resource development and capacity building. We'll show some of the nuance under these in a moment, but really strengthening our impact, looking at funding partnerships alongside efforts to secure additional resources and alignment with our strategic roles. And then lastly, looking at collaboration and communication, enhancing communication and collaboration between all departments. It's that very wide footprint. How do we get the information out and shared from branches to central and vice versa, but also to partners around the locations and branches at all levels of the organization. There's a lot of energy and passion that we heard through the process, but also some feelings of disconnect and sort of how do we share information and work together towards our goals. So I won't read through all of these, but I'll leave them up for a minute as far as what's informing these 5 pillars for that readiness. Really that capacity and leaning into skills improvement or language development when we're looking at EDI, continuing that mindset around research-backed and data-informed that's both in the community engager and other aspects, but making sure that we're looking at the community needs when we're looking at EDI. For workplace culture, ensuring that we're creating an organization where intersectional identities can thrive, that we're reducing bureaucracy where we can and helping to foster creativity and bring people up. Again, I won't read through all. Within development, really leaning into leveraging the deep expertise. I think we heard a lot of especially when we're facing more towards the community, a lot of our staff members know these communities really well, and how do we connect them, empower those groups, and help them develop others with that understanding. Looking at what are the opportunities and how do we socialize this within the organization for career advancement, and really developing that next generation of library, working through support and mentoring and looking at the roles and the needs behind that. Within the communication, again, using those goals, roles, and priorities that we now have established in the plan to really create a unified direction and sort of march together. And look at how we're sharing knowledge and skill sets. I think we worked with a staff working group for much of this work, and even just bringing that group from across the system in, they were already trading knowledge and connecting as far as, oh, I didn't know about that, that sort of thing. So really bringing that energy of how do we leverage the people that we have and connect them more closely to each other. Within the resource development, this is where we're looking at increasing fundraising channels in partnership and lockstep, building on the existing relationships with the fund, but also looking at raising all of the sources of funding to live and move forward into that future. And then also, how can we leverage partners in different ways so that we're not necessarily providing all the services, maybe we're connecting or partnering or housing some of these pieces. Within partnerships and staffing, it's really how are we standardizing how we work with partners, renewing and looking at our relationships with existing partners, and also exploring like what is the capacity and time we have available as a way to prioritize sort of how we move forward. And where are the gaps in staffing and operational to get to our future roles. And there were a lot of to-dos in that last section to close and speaking to some of those to-dos. So we want to talk about what's next. So if you were looking for an at-a-glance of where all the titles and pieces of the plan in one location, this is where we will start. This is the foundation. We've identified who we want to be in the future. What are some of the gaps and readiness we need? What are the roles we want to live? And how will we bring our core values to life? Within that, if you're looking for a cheat sheet of where all the goals are on one page, that is also within this chapter. And we also wanted to explore a bit of when we're thinking about what's next, how do you take these goals and sort of bring it down to a specific initiative or a specific requirement. So we did take a glance at the McKim goal, a project that we know is coming, and how this could be an opportunity to both take the framework of the roles and go from goal down to initiatives and tactics of how we might roll this out. So there's opportunities within every of these goals to reach out to bring different tactics within. A lot of the items you're seeing on this page are actually from the proposed master plan for McKim and how they could align with what we want to achieve in the future. And then lastly, around implementation, the next step after the approval of the plan through this body and others is to begin implementation planning within the next few months as far as what do we want to do first? What do we want to prioritize to start, and what are some of the enablers and sort of internal work that we want to start right away, some of those studies, and understand the community. So what you're seeing here is like in the near future, really laying that foundation with that implementation, planning, blocking out a path to 2030, looking at how we're communicating, announcing the plan, socializing it, get the word out both internally and externally, and looking at those capacity building initiatives so that we can use those as enablers to head towards some of those broader ones. And then as it scales up, as we're building the capacity, continue to widen, continue to scale, but also have a mindset of continuous learning and conversation year by year as far as what's working well, what do we need to tweak, and sort of using this as a living framework as you evolve in the future. And lastly, we are running out of room on this page for all of the people who have been involved with this, this process. Both our staff working group, as well as we did do an all-staff survey and heard from staff across the system. The leadership and management teams, the Board of Trustees, the strategic planning groups, our steering groups, as well as partners that we had in as part of the process. So every week we realize we've forgotten a name or two. If we are missing any, please let us know. But this was a co-created effort, and just before we switch to discussion, I think our hope as your partners is that within this document that all of the stakeholders can see their voice represented, that all of the, really that co-creation mindset of all of the work we've done to date since February, we didn't make it to a full year, is really reflected in the document. And this both, as Margaret mentions, builds on our strengths and sets us up for a really inspiring and exciting future. So again, a huge thank you to everyone who was involved, to those who are in the room today, and anyone as this is rolling out. And then in closing, that's enough of me talking. In the appendix, obviously, we have a few sections here that are available. And then we did have, to kick off the discussion today, these two sort of food for thought questions for the board. Within this document, what resonates most for you as your role as a trustee? Are there any aspects that you think funders and donors would most gravitate towards, kind of setting that stage for some of the discussions to come? And of course, any other thoughts? I'm going to take some water.
Thank you for condensing 10 months of work into a 20-minute presentation. This is an incredible sort of statement of where we are, and look forward to having the trustees review where we are.
So I have a question. In the last meeting that we had where we reviewed this at the executive meeting, there was a lot of conversation around immigrants and multi-language and all that kind of stuff. And I know that that has something that the library staff has brought up multiple times. In this draft, all that language is gone. I don't see it. So just want to get some insight around that, because that's not how we left it the last time.
Is that, just so we understand each other, I think I saw a number of different initiatives where the immigrant piece was here along with the multi-language piece. Were there things that were missing?
I literally just searched it, and I didn't find that language at all. So maybe it's the way I searched it.
Yeah.
But I literally just did a search on the old version and the new version, and I can't find it.
You can't command F this, but I can see it. So I see it here, embrace diversity, just for discussion. If you go to welcoming destination, and then embracing diversity, if you look at the bottom, enhancing services and relevant programs for immigrant communities, that's just an example. The multilingual is right above that as well, too.
All right, so so that, for some reason, it's not, that's why I said, I must have missed it on the search, because I searched and I didn't.
No, I tried doing Command F on this, too. I couldn't actually search this document.
The document might be flat.
No, and it got moved. Because we talked about it,
yes.
It was on the community engagement, and then it moved to welcoming destination.
Yeah, there was a thinking that so multilingual lives, it's currently both in Engager and in here, and there was a feeling that multilingual part of it really needed to speak to that welcoming aspect, whether that was communications multilingual and services for immigrant communities within the welcoming, and then within the Engager, the one that remained, I think it was,
That's
yeah.
fine, because I was looking at it here.
Yes.
I didn't find it,
Oh,
and then I
good.
searched it, and I couldn't
Yeah.
find it,
Oh,
so.
good. It may not be searchable.
It's not searchable. I've tried searching
Yes,
for words
but
too.
but you are correct. It did shift around. It was some of the feeling around balancing how many we had in Engager versus that aspect of when you come in and you can respond in your own language and see
Yeah, that's
the
fine.
languages available.
I don't have a preference, so we did talk about
Yes.
that as to where should it be.
And it's, you know, I kind of want to build on that. When I wrote down, you know, people always ask, well, what's unique about this plan from all the other plans you work on in the country? And of the 5 elements that are unique, we'll let other questions answer the other 4. One of the elements that I think is unique and y'all should be very proud of is that deep commitment to the immigrant communities and the immigrant population that resonated with us as a priority from the first workshop session. So I think the intent of the plan is for it to be woven throughout to represent that prioritization.
Please, Lynn?
First a comment and then a question. Margaret, when you spoke, you talked about the first 2/3 of my career. My PhD's in corporate strategy. I've taught a lot of strategic planning, and I have to say this is one of the best strategic plans I've seen in my 30+ years of teaching it. So kudos to everyone at BPL. I was just telling Christian, my team will have to study it tomorrow, and I'll be quizzing everyone at 7. I wanted you to say more about the strategic plan as it relates to the visual and the quote you had about being a third space. And what does that mean with each of the roles you play in the community? And what's the metaphor? And what does it mean for strategic partnerships too?
Oh, sure, I'll pick up on that. Everyone can fill in the gaps. So I think one of the things that's informed library work today was the Surgeon General's call to action that we are suffering a crisis of loneliness. And I think that's resonated throughout this process because it was, I think, published maybe 6 months before we even started our work. I think from the very beginning of this work, there was a value placed on place and the role that the public library plays in Boston to be a safe, non-judgmental, trusted resource because of that benefit and privilege of being a place. Y'all are one of the you might be in the data that we put together, y'all are the largest place in the country of real estate square footage to manage and to activate and to facilitate. But also the map that showed the locations and just the privilege of being really embedded in almost every single neighborhood in a 15-minute walk shed. I think there are only 2 areas of the city where that doesn't occur. But so that privilege and then knowing that there is, I remember going to a fundraiser for a nonprofit in the South Bronx, and one of my mentors, Michael Blake, spoke, and he said, you know, the same Park Avenue in Manhattan is the same Park Avenue in the Bronx. And what it resonated with me was the same dollar that we're spending in neighborhood X in a library community and neighborhood Y in a library community is the same. And at the time, we were doing work with the New York Public Library, and there was a clear line at 125th Street between the way the communities use their libraries. If you were below 125th, you used it as a circulating library. If you were above 125th, used it as a activity-based ESOL class, library. And I said, this isn't because the library, New York Public has a strategy around this. This is because this is a pure response to community need. So I think that's where it really resonated with me personally, that this is equity. And the investments that we make in place and the dignity that we give to our facilities is actually our commitment, our most visible investment in the public, in our public. It's not the most important because it's our staff. It's the library staff that's the most important investment, but the facilities are the most visible investment. And I think as you all think about what Frida All really is for the McKim, for how you all activate the branches, that's going to be really, that's what Welcoming Destination is. The second question you asked is about partnerships. When we had our wonderful partner breakfast, place was such a critical need for the partners, and so that opportunity for there to be, really synergies, but also financial benefits in the city that a nonprofit doesn't necessarily have to own a place. They can use the library as a resource is such a win-win. And that's just one example, but the opportunity for synergistic programming goes well beyond what we can even imagine today.
And third became because are you seeing the family unit as the first place, the third place?
Oh, you want to speak to the definition?
I think it's an emerging buzzword, and we had a lot of discussion around, do we use third place? Both of us have architectural backgrounds. In the industry, it's your home or school or work. And a library or a coffee shop or like some of these other things are a third space within the city, within people's lives where they can come together and gather. The uniqueness of the library in that particular role is there's no purchase to entry, I think, is how it can play that community role. But yes, the term third space or third place, as you'll occasionally see it, is that idea of sort of home, school, or work, and then somewhere else that you need within your social fabric within the city to go to.
I would add on that point before we move on to the next question. I think there's this emerging notion of library as civic infrastructure in a way that we think of roads and transit and other things as traditional infrastructure, but how do we double down on libraries, parks, and other institutions, particularly ones that are free, as being part of this story? Yes, it's not home, it's not school or work, but it is a third space that can feel like home, but where your activities are welcome. And actually post-COVID and this loneliness epidemic response, we're seeing a blending of these three notions of space as well, that it's not purely you're one thing and not others. So there's a little blending going on as well in the literature and the experience. And we also liked that this both double down on us having space as our offering, not just the thing that contains services or books or people, which makes our physical spaces really, really important. And then as the mayor picked up the notion of thinking about Boston as a home for everyone, it begins to think of this extended notion of what a library as a type of home or third space could be.
David, are you promising that there's going to be a Cheers bar in every single library?
Where everyone knows you.
I know Jim has a comment, but Lynn, I was going to just pick up on the idea of strategic partnerships. The other question I'd encourage the trustees to think about is how can we be enablers ourselves of accelerating the plan? And I think the trustees in particular can play a vital role in strategic partnerships. There's actually an initiative you may have seen around partnerships with universities like Simmons and businesses, entrepreneurial pieces, but there's a huge slew of different things that the partnerships that we as trustees can really enable. Jim?
That really bridges one of the points that I wanted to make, which is I think in strategic planning processes, often a lot of energy goes into this work, and then you find yourself kind of tired because you've done all this work and you kind of move on to all the things that you were not doing while you were focused on this. And one of the things I wanted to underscore is the importance of starting to think through implementation so that the energy that's gone into this doesn't just sort of peter out, but instead we find ways to really build into the agendas of what we're doing as trustees, obviously the work of the team, ways in which this really does come to life and becomes more than just a document on a shelf. And it's really a terrific piece of work. So I want to echo Lynn's commendation to everyone who worked on this. I also want to thank Christian and Jose for their leadership of the just one place where you did kind of make a hard choice, because I think it would help give insight that it's not just taking everything that we're doing and kind of rearranging it in a pretty way and putting some nice colors around it, but really there were deliberations that led to saying we're going to prioritize certain things, we're perhaps going to put less resources into other things. Is there something that could just give a little light into how you thought about making choices?
The strategic role initially of culture which is not
Mm.
necessarily something that we don't believe in, but
I might even step back a little bit.
I'll allow it.
Um, so I do come into this work with an abundant mindset, so I might not be the exact right person to answer this question. But what I did see happening, and again, we facilitate, our best work is when we're facilitating y'all's vision. And so a lot of our work is framed around provocations that are challenging and sometimes feel good and sometimes don't feel good. But one thing that I saw starting to take shape, and this also is consistent with other work we've done in large urban communities, is the choice to play a partner role in direct social services as opposed to go into a role of direct social services. And I think there was a clarity of that aspiration at the beginning of the work that led to that, then the enabling of what I observed was we want to be a lifelong learning and research partner. We want to be these roles. And then I'll let Aaron speak to Dr. Liu, your observation of the cultural partner as well.
It's an interesting question. I think it's less that there was a direct, like, oh, we're definitely not going to do this. I think it was more like, how do we merge together the pieces that we are and the initiatives that we're looking to do in the future so that we're working together versus in separate silos. I think what you were speaking to a little bit was around, we had a role for part of this around cultural advocate that was really leaning and reaching at specifically the special collections function and research, as well as connecting to kind of more that history piece. And I think what's been interesting about the last few months of the plan is really that is just one of our many collections. Those histories are one of many histories that we have. And I think ultimately it's stronger if these aspects are considered as an inclusive whole versus a satellite function that sort of is running in parallel. So if you look at the finalized wording, especially in the lifelong learning partners, sort of where this shows up the most, I would go there, but I've lost control of the script this meeting. I think that merging, initially, I think our team had some debates on it as far as, is it watering it down in a way to not specifically see like, oh, special collections and research? But I think what's been interesting in working with the leadership team and the staff and this group as well, is that merging, I think, ultimately makes all collections stronger, like whether that's a branch library that's pulling a local author or a medieval manuscript that we're bringing in, like bringing those initiatives together widens the conversation in an interesting way. So I would view it less as, like there were definitely ideas that were cut or things that maybe some of the initiatives, but I think more of the action has been towards how do we align and do things together versus what do we sort of throw away or start, I think has been the interesting, especially in the last kind of 2-3 months, a lot of that merging has happened.
And so the exercise did force us to prioritize what things raised to a level of the 4 roles and goals and initiatives. That certainly happened. I do think in other plans I've seen, there's no thought about implementation and it sits on a shelf, right? Whereas here, we know we're up for 3 to 6 months of actual implementation planning that follows from this, so that we can do that. And there's a very interesting version of the roles diagram on slide 56 that allows us to think about, in the appendix, the toolkit section, about how to say that maybe not all 4 roles play out exactly at full strength for everything we do, but maybe some are stronger and some are less. And this could be a lens for initiatives, this could be a lens for a specific branch or community, this could be a lens for some other thing, a new idea that comes to the table. So it gives us a framework for describing the assets and the characteristics in a way that then allows us to make choices.
John?
One comment. I thought
starting off today and hearing what is going on here at the Mattapan branch made me feel fantastic. To see those different types of community organizations coming in here and using this as that place, I think was a great way to kick off this meeting today, because we're hoping to even do and go deeper and better, and that was terrific. I guess when I'm listening to how we implement this, the big question, and it's an important part that we don't, I think, talk enough about, it's going to cost money. And we're all collectively engaged in that, what we get from the state, what we get from the city, what we get from donations, and how we get the foundation stronger. So I don't know if we've made the choices will come down as we begin to implement this on what kind of funding we do get. And to me, for us to execute on this, I think that's going to be an important aspect of this, that I don't know how much we have delved in or spent on that, but I would say this, and I'll echo everybody's sentiment, and having come from the business and sits through so many strategic planning sessions, this is really, really well done and very impressive. And now it's up to us to execute, but also for us to help in helping get the funding and anything we can do to make sure we can do it all and execute on it financially as well. So,
I think Lynn, then Christian.
Mine is just really quick, and maybe Margaret can comment on this, or David. How does our funding model compare to like a New York Public Library that gets tons of philanthropy? Like
Page 43.
Yes, so let's go to page 40.
Christian may or may not
We
have
all need to
memorized
raise lots of money.
this plan.
Yeah, I was actually going to go there, Lynn. I think page 43 is interesting because it shows spending per capita on a city-by-city basis, including a breakdown of the BPL versus the New York Public Library. And you can see that as a portion of per capita funding, foundation support is a much larger piece in New York than in Boston, which goes to John's point. If we are envisioning a very bold plan here and we need the resources to underwrite it, we may need to think more about how to activate the additional sources of foundation support. The fund has done amazing work, but this is, I think, our hope that the plan will resonate with the broader philanthropic community, and that we'll be able to maybe make the wedge proportionally a little bit bigger in Boston.
yeah, and I think 42, 43, and 44 are really important aspects to the foundation of this. And I thought it was really, I was very happy to hear the mayor talk about the appendix. She did her homework, and hey, I love it, but I did read the appendix, and I think it gets along those lines of this is going to be a great draft if we can execute and help get the funding.
Julie, then Joe, but just quick comment for John. I mean, I think to one of the questions here, I think that's where we as trustees can help prioritize. And one of the things about prioritization is what is resonating with our network, with our donors, right? And that can help the library around implementation about making choices about where to start. And Julie, please.
I also thought the plan, I think the plan is fantastic. In particular, I really appreciate the strategic roles as they've been defined, because I do think it helps provide clarity in terms of where you want to be and where you don't. That being said, I guess a couple of questions. One around the funding. Do the strategic roles inform a different way that funding should be done, or fundraising should be done? And if so, beyond just the differences that you see in the benchmarking, what is missing from the way that we do fundraising, and how should we think about it differently given the roles that have been defined? And then more in terms of how the staff should then embrace this as we go forward. There are a lot of strategic goals, and you know, the ability to do all of them all at once, probably not feasible. Is there also some thinking around in terms of building I'll call it a roadmap beyond the one page that has the short-term, mid-term, long-term, because that's pretty high level. Is there a clearer roadmap for staff to then be able to use as they think about the work that they need to do to pull this forward? How do they go about thinking through the strategic roles and or the strategic goals as laid out, so that it becomes practical for them, and to the comments that were made earlier, that it doesn't just sit on a shelf and collect dust, that they know how to use it. The roadmap is the word that comes to mind. So those were two of the questions I had.
Roadmap, maybe rubric also, right?
Mhm.
What's the framework to make choices through? The easy one is resources and impact, but there's broader ones. And do you want to help answer some of that?
I love these questions. The first thing I do want to say about the comps, and we definitely thought long and hard about the strategy for presenting the comps. They're both everything and nothing, as you all know. And one of the things I think that it's really important is that we don't get so caught up in the pennies, but also understand the conditions that each one of these organizations, what has created the conditions for these organizations to succeed. So underneath these comps, that's, extremely important. But in terms of funding choices, so one of the things that was really excited about working with you all is I knew that Boston Public Library would let us go into the business model conversation. And I think what I've observed in the library industry is that we are going from a transactional model to a transformational model. And when we have stopped in doing that in the strategy, but not thought about what that means to the business plan, then that also atrophies the aspirational vision and the strategy. So I think, yes, to your question, that this will inform funding at every level. And I think that's still part of what the next step of this work will be, is business and operational planning. But the fact that you're embracing it as an implementation parallel is critical, and it will inform every single decision, even where pennies are going. And I think in terms of the transformational work, I think y'all are working so closely together, and I would say a very high functioning transactional mode of prototyping new programs. But I think the goal of that funding model is to get into a systemic change model where there's not just a one-off that's a prototype at one location, but that we see, for example, the nutrition lab, how can we fund it to be successful across the system? So that's just one example as I see as an opportunity. In terms of the staff's shift, that organizational readiness is work. That's going to be the first year of work. That's director, manager level work. But on a day-to-day basis, I always say to folks, the first and kind of most important thing that you can do without even a project management conversation is live your values more deeply. So what will it mean to be free to all in this new era of work will be one of the most foundational aspects, and is something that everyone can do tomorrow. The second thing is to live what you're already doing in the strategic work. So start living in the framework, start living in the roadmap, and get comfortable with it. And then, of course, the third thing is that project management piece. And we've seen it play itself out in San Francisco. Y'all are really lucky to have San Francisco about a year ahead of you. But it's taken them about 3 to 4 months even to mobilize to do their project management piece for that implementation.
I think one point which is important to address the fundraising concept that you raised, Julie, is that one of our most important and largest funding needs is going to be for McKim. And so as we think about what it means to reimagine McKim, what it means to renovate and transform McKim into a vibrant space that honors the past, et cetera, it's going to be important to have a dialogue, as we've noted, with all stakeholders, including the philanthropic community. What most animates people, what most excites people. I agree with everything that Margaret said, but just in terms of a sheer dollars question, there's a lot of money that needs to be raised for McKim, and we need to have a collaborative discussion with the broader community as part of that.
Joe, and then Navjeet.
Sure. Thanks, Ray. Thank you all. Again, I want to echo and not repeat what Jim and Julie said about where the rubber meets the road on the implementation. There are some sections in the key initiatives that are very specific, and some are extremely general and amorphous. And I think the test will be for David and his team. How are you going to? What does this mean in practice? And I think that's, I think the metrics against which we measure David and his team, I think, are going to be very important, and hopefully we can, drill down a little bit more specifically. One thing that I mean, that also I think is missing from our discussion at the executive committee meeting that we had a few weeks ago. I'm a little concerned that special collections is not specifically called out. And special collections is something, we talk about it in the lifelong learning section, and we make some passing reference to the collections, but certainly talking about funding and the philanthropic community. One of the things that makes the Boston Public Library unique is our incredible special collections, to Shakespeare's First Folios, to our music collection, to our art collection, to our Boston history collection, to our Phyllis Wheatley collection, to our abolitionist collection, et cetera, et cetera. It makes us very unique as a public library, and I think if I could make just one comment or suggestion, and I thought we had talked about this at the executive committee meeting, is to somehow amplify that a little bit, because I do think that's something that's unique and important, both for the identity of the Boston Public Library as the oldest large municipal public library, as well as something that will motivate funders and philanthropy. So I just, you know, I know this is a finished document, but it just says final draft, so I'll take the draft as opposed to the final. And just ask that maybe we think about special collections a little bit more, because I do think it's an important part of what we're doing.
We can take it offline, Joe, but it'd be helpful to hear your thoughts about which strategic role
Yep,
this may
yeah.
sit under.
Yeah, happy to do that.
To give some more definitive feedback. Navjeet?
Thank you. So I wanted to just really, it's not a question, it's just a comment. What resonates the most with me in my role as a trustee is I feel that this is really grounded in the history of the Boston Public Library, which I didn't feel from some of the initial drafts. So I just wanted to say I really appreciate that. I feel in this draft that we've grounded it in the long history of the library. As a trustee, I'm just here, a caretaker of that for the time period that I'm here, right? And so now I feel like we're setting it up, and I love the focus on looking to the future and digital and third space and all of the ways in which libraries will be incredibly relevant going forward. But we're discovering that as a community. And so I just wanted to really say thank you, because this really works for me, and I wanted to say why.
Oh, good.
Thank you. Portia?
Yeah, I'll just echo everybody's sentiments in terms of the document being pretty incredible, and express just gratitude for the team that put it together. I want to say that I really appreciate the ethos of free to all, and I think centering the EDI makes a lot of sense in the context of that. I think it makes a lot of sense in terms of using that kind of as a central point to accomplish some of the other goals. I'm really very much so interested in implementation, how we put this to practice, and I understand that there's a 3 to 6 month time period in which a plan will be developed, but I guess I'm curious as to whether or not that'll be solely staff developing some of those plans. Are we bringing in outside folks, and then are there folks who specialize in EDI work that'll also be brought to the table?
Sorry. So yeah, we have some details to do around what implementation planning actually looks like. I'm going to take this moment to simply recognize the number of people's voices and leaders who have who's present in this. But there are 2 individuals that I think we all owe an incredible debt of gratitude to for helping steer the ship for this process, and that's Sarah Zafiris and Lisa Pollock. So. I was going to wait till the end, but you talked about implementation and what next. So I thought, there's a project management dimension to planning that is really, really important, as well as having your voice in that. So we may look to outside expertise to help with this, because it's about capacity as well as particular expertise. And sometimes you have one and not both, or you have both but not at the right time. I think we always knew that. Well, I always knew that our 2020 work around equity, diversity, and inclusion was largely, I'm going to call it preliminary, as in we worked with the trustees to arrive at a commitment and a statement that's very, very important. And we had some staff working groups, and we did a little work, but I think we're now if you will, ready for a full-on EDI 2.0 plan that can be now informed by the broader strategic plan that we have. So I fully expect that we will do that in concert with filling our EDI coordinator role that we're in the process of doing right now. So yes.
These are great comments. Jose, please.
Chairman, thank you. Two thoughts that I'd like to posit for our consideration. One is, I think it was apropos that we would have the mayor and the chief of human services with us this afternoon, because as I look at the strategic plan, I don't see us as being siloed in the city of Boston. I see us as being part of an ecosystem that will make it possible for us to be successful if we are engaged with others in seeing what value we bring to the table as far as making it so that all of our fellow citizens will be healthy. And by healthy, what I'm saying is, you know, when I think about, and I use my grandson again as an example, my hope is that he will grow up to be a very healthy human being. And by healthy, I don't just mean physically healthy, but mentally healthy, emotionally healthy, socially healthy, intellectually healthy, culturally healthy, financially healthy, spiritually healthy, all of the things that make up for a holistically healthy person. And I think that we play a role if we look at the lens as being a health provider in what we do. But we have to do so in concert with those who do that work as well, right? So I think that for me, the idea of this strategic plan is it's not a standalone, because we need to work in concert with others, and in particular with the support and the vision of the mayor and with the support and the vision of the chief of human service. So that's part of my excitement. I didn't look at this strategic plan as just being, we're doing this on our own. I saw it as part of a bigger picture, part of a bigger ecosystem. And so thus, I think that those questions about financing and things of that nature are appropriate, but I think that there are going to be some levers pulled on the part of those two in particular to make sure that we get the kind of support, at least from that sector, and that they can advocate in other sectors to make sure at least we meet those challenges at the time that comes. So that's one thing. And then the other piece, you know, we don't know what we don't know. I've shared this with the chairman and Kristen as well. And I worked with a gentleman named Tom Glenn when I was at Massport, and I was the director of policy, and he was the CEO, and we would have the folks come in from security, cybersecurity and things of that nature, and they would always say to us, there could always be a black swan, so you have to be thinking about that as you're planning anything. And I only raised that with this group just because in the context of what we're laying out is what might be the strategic plan. And we look at you, David, as being the one that we're going to look at and say, where are we year 2, year 3, year 4, year 5? I'm hoping that at least we embrace somewhere in this the thought that we will have to have some wiggle room in this venture, this journey. If a event occurs that we're not thinking of at this particular moment, that may occur. And I have no idea what that is because I don't know what we don't know. But I hope that at least as we consider what the strategic plan is, that somewhere in our mindset allows us to call an audible, if you will, on the line of scrimmage, if it needs to be called at that particular moment. So I just want to put those two thoughts in this conversation. Thank you.
I would react to the first part and say I'm thrilled that the mayor and her senior staff were both part of the process and then able to join us today. You know, I think we are engaging with the governor and her staff at the level we're able to right now. We have teed up our conversation with the BPL fund for our next meeting. We recognize in this document that we, you know, have a range of other partners and affiliates, and indeed even call out, you know, our friends groups who are part of the ecosystem as well. So this document, once you approve it, gives us the ability to say, look, this is an all hands on deck moment to make this institution everything that was promised in 1848 and that we've been trying to live up to ever since. And so that's the opportunity I welcome. And I do think the the audibles, you know, the pandemic, who knew we would have a pandemic, and yet we pivoted because the library always pivots and became a vital resource during that time. You know, the mayor is on the record of reaffirming Boston values in the face of, you know, the challenges that may occur at the federal level as a result of recent activities and what is ahead. All the more reason to center our equity work and our support for immigrants, honestly. And so, yes, I think the audibles to be called can be about threats, but they can also be about opportunities. And artificial intelligence perhaps is both. Who knows? We'll see.
So agree with that. 5 minutes, just for timing. Pamela will. Of course. I always have to listen to the boss, of course. And just by way of comment back, Jose, you know, the adaptability and the resilience of a plan is critical. We didn't talk about it much, but actually you can see it right here. We at the executive committee, we talked about what's the right timing for this, right? Do we just put a time and a date of 2024, 2025? I think we welcome thoughts from all, but put a marker in the sand that we would say 25 to 30, not because we think that we can forecast the future for the next 5 years, partly because it's a nice bow on it with the 400th anniversary for the founding of Boston, so it takes us into that celebration, but acknowledging that things can change. And I love the idea of opportunity, David, right? And I think that we keep on revisiting. We don't change the plan, but we revisit the plan every year, every 6 months, and we see what the opportunities lie. Welcome more comments from the trustees. Wow. All right. Would say that, you know, this was rich discussion. This is what we were looking for in terms of outcome. Lots of feedback, certainly. Would welcome additional feedback by way of email, texting, calls, voices. Our final vote for this, quote unquote, won't happen until early December or so. I think there is a marker on people's calendars right now. So there is time for more, and really, really appreciate everyone's input at this point. Really appreciate David, staff, and of course, Margaret and Aaron for bringing us through this. Just terrific, terrific work, and you can see that the work has paid off. So thank you.
I guess just one question, Ray. It is the expectation that the board will continue to have an important role in the implementation going forward. I think the idea is that we would be part of the dialogue. We would be kept up to speed. We would be able to track how things are going against the various goals, initiatives, and objectives. That to me was important because, to Julie's earlier comment, we don't get into much granular detail at all about what to do first, what to do last, how to allocate resources against various things. And I don't think the board necessarily needs to be involved in every detail, but I think it is important for us to be involved in monitoring the general implementation and ensuring that we are tracking generally against the plan.
Couldn't agree more. I think two areas, as we noted, along the way where I think that the board can be particularly helpful is maybe three areas. One, we can also help with developing that rubric, at least inputting on the rubric, right? How do you make those choices, right? And welcome Lynn's 30-year experience in this, but everyone else here has also spent a lot of time in strategic planning, right? And what are the what's the framework to make those choices with, right? What are we valuing? What are we weighting, so to speak, as we think about making those choices? And then two, I think that this group can definitely, again, to answer these questions, provide continual feedback or early feedback on prioritization, what resonates with this group, particularly individuals that are right here, but also your network, right? And understanding that, and that will help also guide the implementation. Comments, thoughts? That, I think I will bring to close this rich discussion, and again, appreciate everyone's input at this point. And we can move on to the next agenda item. We can move on to perhaps finance and audit. Would that be okay, Evelyn?
The money people.
Thank you, Erin and Margaret, very much.
All right, this should be quick. So the first update we have, it's NEPC. NEPC is our investment consultant. And we just got notified that they have been acquired by Hightower Holdings. They said it was not a merger, things will remain normal, yada, 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 what we always hear. And so we said they haven't seen, there's no planned senior level exits. They will continue doing business as they have. But we have put them on a watch list. So, we'll see. But they have done really well. They, just to give you a quick update, our portfolio has been doing really well. So year to date, we have increased year to date. So they've been doing really well for us. So we just have to, keep an eye. So we have a deeper dive in January timeframe, but just wanted to give you that update. Any questions around that? They did give us, and if you're all interested, we can forward that to you with the details of the performance and what to look out coming the new administration. So if anybody's interested, we're happy to share that with the rest of the trustees, or you can see it on the website. Yes? So we are at over 70 million. All right. Any questions? Anything I missed?
We're good.
Good? Okay. We have a gift report. Yes. Yeah? You gonna jump in?
We have it. It's right here. No, just a quick update for everyone. This is the FY24, so closing out in June gift report. About $600,000 over FY23. That's primarily attributed to the BPL fund. And the other piece that I wanted to call out here, particularly with the branch friend groups, these are financial donations that come into the trustees as official contributions. There's a lot of other contributions from the fund groups that go directly to the branches they support. Ice cream socials, program supplies, decorations, that sort of thing that aren't tracked here in the official financial report. Mattapan, I know, sponsored a program series right here in this branch, so I wanted to call those out as well.
So I want to publicly acknowledge, we do get, a significant amount of dollars from all these groups. And this just has a breakdown on who they are. And I want to publicly acknowledge all the groups that have, given to this library and everything they do. All right, any questions around this?
Just curiosity.
Sure.
Friends of Parker Hill?
Yeah.
2,800, so like jumps at me. What's the difference there? What are they doing there?
We can get back to you on that. I know a lot of these are, a lot of the money that comes in from the friends groups that are shown here are for museum passes. So that's why the numbers are somewhat similar, but I can dig in to figure out what the difference on the Parker Hill one.
And maybe just a couple of quick comments. I think this highlights, and this is terrific work, but I think I also heard discussion on business model for us, right? And if I've got my numbers right, if I remember right, this represents maybe 5% of our total budget and probably even less, like low single digits. Is that right?
This is the total number of donations that
Right.
came in for FY24, not the total amount spent.
Right.
So a little bit different.
Which
than
is
what
even
we-
a little less, and then
Correct.
against our budget is what I mean by low single digits for our business model in terms of depending on philanthropy.
Correct.
Great. And then the second comment I was just going to say is I think we discussed maybe at some point we'll have, I just got a wonderful tutorial from Emily, and I encourage maybe having Emily come back and speak to the trustees on that tutorial as well too for the finances of the BPL.
Great.
I steal it back. Any questions regarding the gift report? No? All right. Next, so just to give you a little bit of background, and Emily, you're going to pipe in too. We had a situation a few months ago where for the special collections, there was a book that was acquired, an item that was acquired, and the person was from the UK, and they didn't accept just normal methods of payment. So that it became a little bit of a problem that we needed to make this purchase, through their currency, which required a wire transfer. And then Emily then, has drafted this policy for the trustees to vote in. They, if you look at the policy, and we discussed in our meeting, concerns around hacking and fraud, fraudulent transactions from, other people, not us, but other people. And so this is something that has been discussed with the banks, it was discussed in the committee, and we're putting forward this language for this policy for the finance team to take on place. And basically, if you look at it, we would, they will be trying to use any standard methods of payment or any other ways before they actually go into a wire transfer. So wire transfer is sort of like the last recourse, but this is policy around that. Emily?
Sure.
What else you want to add?
Absolutely. The piece that Evelyn's speaking to, we purchased a transcript in May. We mailed the check to the UK, and it took 6 months. The man still couldn't cash the check through his bank. We had the piece of material. Obviously, he wants to get paid. So this was our only recourse to get him that funding. We've put together just the brief description of the policy piece. We do have a much larger process that we would follow. Expectation is this would be less than 10 times a year. To Joe's point earlier, special collections, that would be the primarily use for this. That we're working with auction houses and vendors in Europe and other countries, and we're just having an issue with their transactions.
Any questions regarding?
The only question I had is whether there was any consideration given to having some limit.
No, absolutely. It's definitely something that we can speak to on the board as well. I can offer a couple of pieces to that. The special collection curator, their annual budget is a total of about $300,000 of all of the things that they're purchasing. The largest purchase that we've made on a particular item in recent history was about $90,000. So they're not significant amounts. And as Evelyn was saying, this would be our last recourse. The other piece I wanted to throw out as well, when we're dealing with a vendor itself, 99% of the time we actually have the material already in hand. So it's not a concern of it not getting to us once we've wired. The cases where that isn't the case is auction houses. So they have their own standard practices. And obviously we would be working with reputable auction houses with those types of purchases.
And then also what's important to note is that there are 3 levels of signatory approvals before this actually happens. All right. Any additional questions? If not, can I get a motion, please? Second? Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any abstentions? Any nays? It's approved. Thank you so much.
Great. Thank you very much, Evelyn. And do you want to move to new business and then time for public comment? My understanding is that we have a number of different comments, but creating space for new business from anybody? I will say one thing that Pamela reminded me of. We like to recognize our trustees' awards and honors. Certainly in the past, Evelyn, we've recognized your golf prowess. This is a little dated, but Julie, we recognize that you were listed as one of the winners for the 2024 Pinnacle Awards by the Boston Greater Chamber of Commerce. And we know that was a number of months ago, but honoring 10 remarkable female professionals in Greater Boston for outstanding achievement in business, government, and management. And Julie won in achievement in management in the private sector. So thank you very much for your service. About the same as the golf awards. Any other new business? With that, maybe Pamela will open up for public comment.
Sure. We have one online. It is Alice Lee. She is the chair of the chair of the Associates Board. Tonight, I know that they are having an event, but she was to give. Can you guys open up her mic? And then we have a few here, but she's the only one online.
Good afternoon, everyone. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes. Terrific. That's right. We do have an event today, and so I'm very disappointed that I can't actually be there. But I did want to say bravo on this strategic plan. And I also wanted to say that the Associates of the Boston Public Library, which I chair, that we look forward to supporting the implementation of the plan, particularly as it relates to amplifying the voices and histories of Boston's many vibrant and diverse neighborhoods and people. And I heard Chairman Liu make comment to Trustee Berman that, they will talk offline at some point to sort of discuss how that may happen. And recently, it brought to mind a couple of things that we have recently been able to fund, and the work has been completed. But for instance, the Galatea collection is 5,000 volumes that are focused on the history of women, and it includes a newspaper that was written by an abolitionist, and it was all focused on women. And it also included a magazine called Women's Era that was published between 1894 and 1897. And it was the first magazine that was written, edited, and published by Black women. I didn't know that, and I was a Black Studies major when I was in college. So there are lots of things that are in the collection that can be used in some way, shape, or form, maybe at the main branch, or that ways that we can amplify some of these things or get them out to people in the neighborhoods, perhaps digitally. But in any of these ways that we can help amplify voices, we are very much excited about doing so. And there are lots of incredible things in the special collections to share with the general public. Some of you have been to the Kuskavitsky events. Tonight is our last one. And we've been really impressed by the numbers of people, a couple of hundred people coming out at every event to hear about this BSO director who really did so many incredible things for the BSO and for the city of Boston when he was alive and here. And so anything we can do to amplify these voices where people can see themselves, can imagine what they can do, we very much want to be a part of that, and very much are hoping that we will be able to continue to support the preservation of these important works for the public to see.
Thank you
And
very much, Alice. I'm sorry, if you can wrap up, please, because we have a 2-minute limit for all public
done.
commenters.
Thank you. I am done. Thank you.
Thank you. Good luck tonight.
Thanks. Thank you.
We have a few people, I'm not sure if you signed in because you thought it was a sign-in sheet, but I'm going to read your name, so, in the order they were received. So if you'd like to speak, just let me know. If not, just give me the wave. I do have Alyssa Kadillik. All right. Thank you, Alyssa. There is a microphone right there for you.
I'm just excited not to have to climb down Rab's stairs.
I know.
That's exciting. My name is Alyssa Kadillik. I am president of Ask Me Local 1526. I am also going to wear my training coordinator hat today, based on the topic that we had. Don't get scared. Just a couple of things to focus on, and again, I'm going to focus more on the strategic plan because that was today's main topic. We, as an organization, I've been with the library for 31 years, and most of our strategic plans in the past have continued to silo us. It's been branch versus central. It's been research services versus public services. It has been the Boylston versus McKim. So one of the things that I appreciated about this plan and having an opportunity to contribute partly before it got to you is that it didn't call out things like special collections. It doesn't call out all of these different areas. It really did bring us all together as an organization under one umbrella. And that is just one of the things that I would hope that you consider and continue to have that discussion, is that when we're talking about us as an entity, we're talking about us as an entity and that is something that, wearing all of my hats, we find as a problem. We have this group against this group against this group, and so working together over the next couple of years for this strategic plan is going to be a hardship. It's not going to be easy. There's going to be a lot of barriers to break down, and with that, it leads me to the next thing, which it will take money, it will take staff funding, It will take, we used to have over 300 members in our bargaining unit alone. We are well under that. The ERI back in the early 2000s did a number on us, and then obviously in 2009 and 10 and on. And so, but also when you're thinking about funding, thinking about being ways to be outside the box and thinking about not just people and not just positions, although Lord knows we need a lot of those, but things like a learning management system, you know, which is something that we would be able to do for, so if we truly want to invest in our staff, which is something that, you know, when I first saw the draft strategic plan, I didn't see it. I didn't see staff in it. And I raised that, and I think I see it a little bit more now. Maybe not as much as I'd like to see it, but I think I see it a little bit more certainly than I did the last time. But if you truly want to, you know, $5,000 of staff professional development for a staff of our size is not enough. You know, I can do a lot with free, but it's not enough to do it. And so when you're thinking about it, it's not just thinking about the special collections. It's not just thinking about, you know, our capital, which we get from there. It's also thinking about how do you raise money? How do you get our partners? How do you get our city partners to invest in our staff and be able to do that? So thank you for your time today.
Thank you, Alyssa. Cynthia Landry? Cynthia? I think she just signed in. And Joseph? I don't know how to, is it Joseph Edwards?
Joseph Eubanks.
Eubanks, I'm sorry, thank you, Eubanks.
I'm glad to see everyone here today. I'm usually sending emails, so I'm not usually in person. I represent Garrison Trotter Neighborhood Association, Crawford, Block Watch, and you know the situation we have with White Stadium, where they're about to cut down all these trees, but that is not why I'm here. I was at Eggleston Library earlier, and all these tree hangers were on trees. The trees designated to be torn down. So I'm very, very leery of capital projects, especially ending and beginning on time. And I do hope that Eggleston Library is built and some of the green space is kept, but it's built in a timely fashion. We know what happened. We had a pandemic, COVID. We know what happened with all the libraries that were doing construction. That's unfortunate, but I would like to make sure that all of the libraries that are built will be built timely, not taking 5 or 6 years to build it. You know, like we're building the Taj Mahal here. We're not building the Taj Mahal. We're building a library. We're reconstructing a library. We're remodeling a library. We're building a library. So that's just my only concern. And I'm glad to see the people who are here. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
And last, I have Janice McManus.
Good afternoon. My name is Janice McManus. I appreciate the opportunity to speak in front of the commissioners. Been a Boston resident for a while, first time at this meeting. My first library experiences were in Newark, New Jersey. And then when I came here to work, I saw the Boston Public Library. And so a lot of us did not experience a big library experience. Our main public library was like the size of this building. So, but Boston is known for the largest and oldest library in the country. And this library was started when my ancestors were not speaking or learning English as their first language. And literacy in my community is very important because my great-grandfather stayed on a plantation to be with the white kids so he could go to school to learn English. Needless to say, our family has come very, very far. As a supporter and a frequent user of libraries, most people know that that's probably where they can find me, and they know which library to find me. We have much to learn, and we have learned much. My first experience was, one of the best ones, was the film called The Big Red Balloon, which our library showed, and some people may or may not know it. But now we have book talks and concerts and speakers and lifelong learning and technology and so much more. some of my questions and thoughts right now are, it's a little comical. We've learned about Carmen Sandiego, where is Waldo? But speaking for some of our residents in Roxbury, we don't know where Mr. Knight is. He has provided a lot of expertise to the community and been a supporter of the community. So that is one of our concerns. Another concern I have is, this library system going to be remembering Ms. Coretta Scott King's contribution to children's literature that is now 50 years old. So I think that's a project that can work on. So thank you for letting me share some of my thoughts. And I continue being an educator in Boston. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
you.
That concludes public comment.
So with that in mind, thank you very much for attendance here and a rich discussion. I will move to adjourn our meeting at this point, and our next meeting, I believe, is December 13th, 9 to 10 a.m. Thank you. Oh, next official meeting, January 28th, 2024, but at the Honan Olson branch. It's close to me. But we are having a special meeting for vote of this strategic plan, December 13th, 9 to 10.
Encourage everyone to look at the website because things can change.
Great. Do we have a motion to adjourn? Great, second. And all in favor, aye. Thank you.
Have a snack. Heat it up. I don't want to bring it home. Eat a snack.
Many more moons. 10 months.